Five Rings Podcast, your weekly amateur sports and Olympic sports show with Duane and Kevin Laramie. And now, without further ado, here's Duane Rollins.
Yeah, indeed, this is Duane Rollins of the 24th Minute in Canada Soccer News. I'm joined by Kevin Laramie, and we're just going to talk about some Olympics. We started chatting on Twitter the other day and decided that there wasn't an Olympic podcast out there. We're both Olympic freaks, and thought this might be a fun thing to do. And who knows, if it goes well, maybe we'll do it a little bit longer. But for now, we're going to talk about Sochi, and we're gonna talk about it just from the perspective of two guys that have grown up in it and love watching the games. That sound about right, Kevin?
Oh, absolutely. I was 10 years old in '94 when Lil Ammer was there, so big year. It's like it was yesterday, so big Olympic freak here.
So all good times. I was a little older than 10, and we're going to find that out in a minute in 1994. So we'll find that out in a minute when we go through the format of how we're going to do this. And basically what we're going to do is each day during the Olympics, we're going to name our gold, our silver, and our bronze medal winners, which are basically our three biggest performances of the day, how we saw the games. Probably Canadian for the most part, but we'll add the world in there because we're men of the world.
You never know what can happen.
And we're also We're also going to add, of course, our wooden medal of the day, which is what we thought the most disappointing aspect of the day is. And that might be a performance. It might be just a disappointment, an athlete that didn't live up. It might be something from the political side of things. Who knows? We'll just play these games as it goes along. But today we're going to do something a little different because this is right after the opening ceremonies. We're talking just a few hours after they ended. And we're going to do our all-time gold, silver, and bronze medal winners, and going to talk to you about what we thought there. So I'll throw it to you first, Kevin. Why don't you tell me what your wooden medal is all time?
All right, so we'll start by wooden medal. It's basically in Vancouver. The death of the luge from which country was he from?
Georgia,
exactly. Nodar Kumaritashvili. I was so hyped a couple years ago. I was watching. It was really late at night, our time in the East Coast. I was watching the training in the morning, and I saw that live happen on the feed, with no commentary, nothing. It was a blank CBC feed, just like it happened last night. I was watching the same thing as well, and the thud is still ringing in my ears. It's undescribable. Just the emotion of you see that training practice going on in front of you with no sound at all except just the sound of the luge on the skate on the ice. That's all you hear. And then you hear a big creaking and a thud. And that was probably the worst sound I've ever heard in my entire life.
Oh, absolutely. I wasn't in Whistler for the games, but a little while after I did get out there, as many Canadians have, and did see the memorial. It's a very small and tasteful memorial they have for him out there, and it's emotional to see that. Certainly, that was not the way anyone wanted to start those games. It goes without saying that sometimes it's unfortunate that we have to be reminded that sport is not as big as life and death, and that wasn't a great way to start the game. So certainly a very low point in the Olympic history, and athletes like to move forward and honor their those that are injured badly or are killed in action by participating with joy and with honor, and I think that's what happened after that, and that's all you can really say to that. My bronze. Sorry, you go ahead.
To make sure we don't blow up people to start with, last time when I was watching the training of luge, I saw one Indian luger who did probably the most amazing move I've ever seen on a luge. He slipped, fell off the luge, belly up on the ice to recovering in a turn and finishing the run. It's amazing. I posted it on our Twitter feed already. It's an amazing video. You have to see that.
And certainly it does underline that they are athletes. I know a lot of people look at the winter sports and think that maybe they could just jump out and get on a sled, but certainly that underlines that you could not. My wooden medal moment is a moment I think many Canadians of a certain age will remember quite well, and I was in my formative years when it happened, so it certainly impacted on me a great deal, and that was the Ben Johnson saga in Seoul. I remember going from the absolute high of seeing Ben Johnson, who was a hero of mine at the time, winning the gold medal against Carl Lewis, the evil American, and with his finger up in the air and all that, to just coming home. I remember I was getting off a school bus. I was playing soccer that day actually, and had got off the school bus, and someone said, "Did you hear that Ben Johnson tested positive for steroids?" And I didn't want to believe him. you don't want to see that your heroes fall, and certainly he did that day. And in the years that have passed, we've learned a lot about what was going on then.
Yeah.
We've learned that probably he wasn't the only dirty person in that race, which changes your opinion of it. But those days that followed, it felt shameful. Yeah. I also ran track and field at the time, and that sport was really hurt by it. It felt, you were ashamed to be a Canadian, and we didn't have as many gold medal opportunities back then either.
Yeah,
so that to take one off the board, it absolutely, and even to this day, as we saw in London, there's not a lot of gold medals running around in the Summer Games for Canada. Hopefully that changes in the future. But yeah, then to take those medals away was something that absolutely was very difficult for us to fathom.
All right, so
moving it on to something positive. We'll start with what's your bronze medal?
My bronze moment.
What's your third greatest?
It's like not the greatest moment. There's not one moment in particular, but I just want to dedicate it to Elvis Stoico and all his glory as probably the most entertaining figure skater to ever face this earth. I still remember to this day the moves that he did when he was doing the Bruce Lee routine in 94 and 98. That was amazing. And his battles with Philippe Candeloro, both of them pushed it to a higher level that hasn't been seen since.
When he was the first to do the quad in competition, I believe, was he not?
He was the first one to do it in 94, and he was always trying to, big advocate to figure skating should reward athleticism, like quads, and people trying to push it forward, and not just the artistic value, which we can see today, because if you remember...
Yeah, and
if you remember, Johnny Weir should have done a lot better in 2010, and he finished 6th or 7th, and he should have been at least 3rd. Just because he landed quads. But
Elvis Stoico absolutely wasn't doing the artistic stuff. Yeah, I think Elvis Stoico absolutely did a lot of that. And I don't pretend to be an expert on figure skating. It's not my favorite part of the Winter Olympics, but I do respect the athleticism and respect it as a sport. And I think that there has been a lot of change today. I think that you would have seen him win a gold medal or two because he was punished because he didn't match the image of what let's call them stuffy and traditional judges thought figure skaters should look like and male figure skaters should look like. Elvis Stoico wanted to have a masculine approach out there, and he did it very well, and I think opened the sport up to people that maybe wouldn't have watched it otherwise that did because of Stoico's style. So certainly that is a great choice as a third bronze medal performance in history.
And yours, I think it's yours is a pretty good one. It's one that I would have chosen, but yeah, yours is good.
Yeah, I think most Canadians will remember mine quite well. Yeah. It was a moment that it's been surpassed since in terms of what happened in Vancouver, but at least let's forget that the gold medal, the 50-year gold medal streak for Canadian hockey was broken in 2002 in Salt Lake City. Joe Sakic scored the insurance goal late that we've seen in commercials lately. Wayne Gretzky in the stands. It was just a moment that a lot of people that had grown up loving the sport of hockey, like most of us have, had waited for a long time. And certainly, when I harken back to my early days watching the Olympics, it was hockey that dragged me in the Sarajevo games when I was a very young boy watching them. I have a funny story about that too, and one of the things that makes it particularly memorable for me is the scenario which surrounded it. I actually was living in New Brunswick at the times, in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and we'd just moved out there, and I remember having a conversation with who I was living with out there at the time, and in September, where she told me that on a certain date, and I forget the exact date right now off the top of my head, that I would need to drive to Moncton to return someone to the airport that was visiting her, and my mind immediately went, "Oh no," because I knew that date was the date of the gold medal final. So, sure enough, as we all know, what happened there, what I did is I set up this is pre-VRs, so I didn't have any digital recording, so I had a VCR plugged in at my house taping it. I had a friend in Fredericton taping it for me, and just in case, I had my parents taping the game back in Ontario for me as well. Turned all of media off. I put CDs in. I would yell at anyone that tried to turn the radio on. We drive all the way to Moncton. I refused to go in the airport. Everyone thought I was crazy. There's no way you're going to find out the score in the airport.
Well, yeah, you would have known.
As it comes everywhere. I guess they came out shaking their head later as they said that there was like 10 TVs in the airport and everyone's wearing Canada gear, and the game was in the middle of the game. And as it turned out, there was a goal because I heard this big roar while I was in the car waiting for them for about an hour. But I said, okay, well, sure enough, Canada's going to score a goal. That doesn't really tell me anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, we drive all the way back, and after this, and for those that don't know, the distance between Moncton and Fredericton is about maybe equatable to Montreal to Quebec City,
Okay.
or maybe a little bit shorter than that. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's not a short drive, so we drive all the way back, and I was chatting on the way back, and there was normally this back way into our house that I would take, but I was distracted and missed it, so I had to take the main exit down Regent Street in Fredericton, which is, if you don't know, where the two universities are kind of really close to there. So as I turn the corner off the highway, about 4.5 hours after this game ends, sure enough, there are still 5 well-refreshed young men waving big Canadian flags ready to turn off the highway, and I was like, oh,
Damn it.
so close, but so far.
You're like, damn.
But I still went back and I watched the game in its fullest, and even though I knew the result, it was still great to see, and seeing how the country reacted to it is why. And that story kind of makes it funny in retrospect now. But
and you still got a chance to see the Lemieux fake dummy pass between his leg to Carrier. Just that.
Absolutely. And it was a wonderful tournament too. And I sometimes, because I'm such an Olympic nerd, I kind of get irritated sometimes at the over-focus on the hockey tournament, but there is no doubt that the hockey tournament is something special to watch, and I'm looking very forward to watching that starting next week. I'll throw it to you now, and then you let me know what your silver medal performance is.
Yeah, it's a pretty, because just the importance, and I can remember 4 years ago when the Vancouver began, we were like, we're going to win so many gold medals, we're going to be so great, and after a couple of days, the pressure started building, and we did not have a gold medal. And everybody's looking at everyone, who's going to be the first one to do it. And it was a kid that I grew up with, actually, that I met a couple of times at parties. And he won the gold medal. Alexandre Bilodeau won the gold medal for aerials, men's moguls. And it was just, you can see in his face the weight of a nation off his shoulder. He was so happy, and when he saw his brother, hugging his brother, those images made around the world were seen and made us proud as a country, as a nation, and as a boy who lived in a city right next to where I was living. So for that was my silver moment. Great images and the great passion you can see in his face when he finally notices that his name, there's a 1 right next to his name. That was great.
And I know mogul is very big in the part of the country that you live in, with the great tradition of great skaters through the years. So that certainly was a moment that I'll remember. And with his brother, and he's a face of the games this time too. May get the repeat. We'll see that very soon in the days ahead.
That's going to be a great battle. Those 3 Canadians, and let's not forget those 3 little sisters. That's going to be crazy.
We'll get to see those tomorrow morning. We'll be able to see that. My silver winning, I'm going to age myself with my silver medal here, and this goes back to the very. I mentioned earlier that I remember Sarajevo in 1984. That is really my first Olympic memories, and I have very faded memories of that one. But the one Olympic just 6 months later that I do really remember quite well was the Los Angeles Olympics. As a little boy, watching those, I had this little TV table set up in my house with a little Canadian flag, and my mother had bought me this book that you could fill in the gold medal and silver medal winners for all the events, and I bought the history of the modern Olympics, which is a resource book that they still produce to this day, and that was what hooked me. And Canada won a lot of medals at that Olympics, and it was because of the boycott. But as a little kid, you don't know that.
Exactly.
You just know that the team you're cheering for is winning. You don't care where the Soviets are, right? But in that Olympics, it was a really amazing performance for the Canadian swimming team. And one swimmer in particular became kind of a hero of mine, and it was because of the way he approached the sport. And that was Victor Davis, who left us too soon, not many years later, killed by a drunk driver. But Victor Davis, for those that don't remember, that are too young to remember, was a Canadian like none other at the time. This image of the polite Canadian that was happy to compete. He just wasn't that. This is a man who threw a chair in the direction of the Queen once.
Oh wow! This
is a man who just who refused to lose and refused to believe that Canadians couldn't be the best in the world. And the reason, what I'm picking as my silver medal performance was actually a silver medal as well, and it was in his secondary event, the 100-meter breaststroke, where he touched and got the silver medal, and I'm in my home in rural Eastern Ontario cheering my mind out, and Victor Davis, he doesn't cheer. He doesn't react with joy that he's just won an Olympic medal, which is a tremendous accomplishment. He pounds his fist in frustration frustration that he'd lost. He'd gone under a world record time too, as well, and finished to an American who broke the world record. So he was angry that he lost the race, not that he won the medal. And even as a little kid, I kind of got that distinction that this is a guy that wants to win. And even I think had Victor lived to an older age, that he might have grown to appreciate that silver medal. But at the same time, he was not happy as an athlete. And I think that I respect that a great deal. I respect that drive to be the best. And I think that all Olympians should have that. And, if their best is a bronze medal, then that's wonderful. If their best is ninth place, then that's wonderful. But they shouldn't aspire to that. And Victor Davis never aspired to that. And it's unfortunate that he was killed way too young. But he is a guy that, to this day, remains one of my childhood sporting heroes that I remember most fondly. And for that, he is my silver medal winner.
All right, well, to make a leeway, my childhood hero when I was a kid, my first big Olympic experience was in 94. Because if you remember, 92 and 94 were the years where they changed the alternation. So we had like 3 Olympics in a 2-year span, which was amazing, first of all. But in 92, there was a little girl from Quebec, around Quebec City, Myriam Bédard, who started to shoot a gun while cross-country skiing. It was the first year women were allowed in the 92 Winter Olympics. She won a bronze medal. But 2 years later, she shocked the world and won both events, the 15 and the 30K. She won the whole thing without, I think, missing once of their targets. And first of all, the whole idea of cross-country, of biathlon, cross-country and shooting is mind-boggling to me. She scared me back then. And we all know what happened to her later. She actually kidnapped her daughter and was in jail for a couple of years. So she was a crazy woman. But still, the feat of winning in 94, it was really impressive to see the pose that she had when you had to cross-country skiing, race your heart out, and then you have to stop completely and be completely still and trying to hit those small targets, which are really small. We think they're big here on TV, but it's like a CD. So that was really impressive. And we had Jean-Luc Brassard in 94 too, which was the first year where men's moguls were in the Olympic. Before that, if you remember, skiing and stuff like that in the Olympic was a little bit more boring. There was no flips. There was no it was basically just a little more artistic, like we said earlier. And then it all changed in 94 when he soared like an eagle with his legs open like a Cossack, trying to do great moves and landed and winning a gold medal for Canada in 94. He was 21, 22? That was a great time for our country.
Yeah, absolutely, and I remember those things fondly. Bedard, I remember those 2 gold medals. They're so shocking because it was an event that very few Canadians even knew of, let alone knew that you could win in. And she's actually, as you said, her post-Olympic it was a bit unfortunate, but everyone has demons, and hopefully she's better off now.
Yeah, I think.
But well, yeah, we'll leave that one alone. But. Certainly, I think you can look at her in a lot of ways, and she's inspired other medals that have come down the line from people that wouldn't have dreamed of taking up that sport. And at the time, Canadians that are new to watching these games, they don't realize how few sports Canada was competitive in. It was figure skating, hockey, and maybe a speed skater back then. Like those rest of the games were just dead zones for any medal chances whatsoever. You were cheering for 50th place,
like ski jump
at that point. So it was a different era, and you have. Oh, yeah. Ski jump's still not that good, although the women, we'll have to see how that goes. But, it was a different time, and to have anyone that would win a double gold medal was kind of phenomenal. And sort of those guys are kind of pioneers to the winning attitude that we see now.
Exactly.
Moving on to my gold medal point, as an adult, you don't have sporting heroes in the same way you did as a kid, but I make one exception with this woman who, as an Olympic freak, is absolutely just a treasure that I don't know. Canadians are starting to understand how much of a treasure she is, but it took a long time. It took a very long time for people to realize what we had here. This is a person who is not only one of the greatest Canadian Olympians of all time, she's one of the greatest Olympians of all time, and that's Clara Hughes.
Oh, she's
and Clara Hughes had won medals from 1996 through to 2006. And she competed in 2010 as well. And it's phenomenal to think of what she did, to win medals in both summer and winter, to go to as many Olympics as she did, to be as amazingly competitive up to a very late age in her life for an athlete. I swear, I believe that had she's kept training for these 2 years, she'd still be competitive now. But
She's
everyone
still
has
competitive. She just doesn't want to. I saw an interview this week. Remember last week was Bell Talk Day? Let's Talk Day. And
Yeah.
she was doing a lot of interviews, and she's still in shape. And I was a cyclist, so I'm a cyclist, but she inspired me just because of the sheer her attitude towards it, her sheer determination of no, I want to do this, and then I'm going to transition to skating, and then I'll go back to cycling, and you know what? I feel like skating again, so I'm going to try it.
Absolutely.
She's fearless.
And the thing about Claire Hughes, and this is going to sound like a diss, but it's not. I don't think she's necessarily naturally a world-class athlete. This is a woman who just has an incredible amount of determination that she's been able to make herself one in a way that few of us could. She won a gold medal. And that, to me, if I have to pinpoint one moment as an adult that I jumped off my couch and was a 12-year-old boy again, it was when she crossed that line and that number one popped up, because I so desperately wanted that woman to have a gold medal. Because before that, she was already one of the all-time Olympians before that. And that's something that not just Canadians were saying, and it was something around the world. But that gold medal solidified it, and that is absolutely, to this day, my number one Olympic moment. And, as you said, I held this deep seated hope maybe that she might come back for one more shot at it, but I won't resent her the opportunity to relax a little bit now in her older years. Well, she's not old, but old for an athlete years. And we saw her today on the broadcast with that big smile again, and you can tell the competitive juices is actually, as a quick aside, I tweeted something the other day that she actually favored it, and I think that might have been the highlight of my life. So there you go. The great Claire Hughes read something I wrote and pressed a little button. But that's she's a beautiful woman. There's no doubt about that. Well, that wraps up the first section here. We're going to come back and just give our thoughts on what we saw today in the opening ceremonies, and then wrap it up before we set up the rest of the week. But we'll leave you with that for now, and we'll be right back after this quick little break. And we're back. Yeah, we're just going to wrap up things today by having a quick little conversation about the opening ceremonies, what we thought about them, whether we have any thoughts on what we might see in the days ahead, and then we'll leave you for the day.
Ceremony today.
Oh, did you now? Well, I'll take your thoughts first too. I was busy snapping on Twitter, but I'll hear what you thought. What did you think of the opening ceremony?
First of all, when it all started, just before the athletes made their way into the stadium, the Fish Stadium, the way they made the whole thing, they started by zooming out on the whole planet and slowly zooming in on Greece, Google Earth style, and they just started zooming in. They just opened, the whole floor just opened, and Greece made their entry. I thought that idea was amazing, because it tells, first of all, technology-wise, what we can do. The way it looked is amazing, and it gives us an idea of like Greece opening itself up to the world, coming out of itself, and then the whole world following it. It was a great image.
Certainly, what was very impressive today. I'll tell you what I liked most about the ceremony was just its size and its scope. They went all out. Now, not every artistic expression is in the eye of the beholder, of course, right? And I'm not the biggest ballet fan, so I can't say as I would watch that every day, but you could certainly understand that it spoke to their culture, and that's a massive part of Russian culture. I think that they also did that very well, that they kept to what they are, and I think that's important, that host nations express themselves in the opening ceremonies that way. It was a little, I don't want to dwell on the negatives, but it was one of the more bang, bang, bang ceremonies I've ever remembered. It still went long because that March of Nations takes forever, but to have like that quick little show and then immediately into the march and then they bang, bang, and it was a very efficient, we'll call it, ceremony. But overall, you always enjoy it. It's something to get you going. But by the end of it, you're like thinking to yourself, maybe I want to watch some hockey now. Let's get this thing going. I'll tell you what, a quick little observation. After it was done, I went back, and if you poke around on YouTube, they have the complete opening ceremonies of a few games that are there for you to watch. And I watched the Moscow ceremonies, and what a difference 1980 to 2014 makes. It's worth going to check it out. It's like a very, very stiff military parade kind of is what it is, but it's kind of trippy to watch. So yeah, I recommend that to anyone. It's also the opening ceremonies of 1984 with the man in the rocket suit that comes down to start. It's kind of cool too. So there's a couple things out there that you might want to check out.
Oh, there's a couple countries that were different names this time around, which I thought that was kind of weird in a political way. Did you know that Macedonia is not called Macedonia anymore, but the former Yugoslav Republic country of Macedonia?
That's a mouthful. No, yeah, the geopolitics is always something to get you over there. I always get a bit of a kick at the Winter Games when you have like the one guy for Bermuda or whatever waving the flag. I don't know if people saw the Venezuelan athlete
Yes, he
like
was
losing his
so
mind and jumping up and
happy.
down. I'm not sure people are aware. There's a bit of a backstory to that guy, and real quickly, he's 42. First off, so not exactly the youngest guy out there. I suspect he's not particularly a medal contender, but his story is that he was diagnosed with a brain tumor when he was very young, like 8 months old or something, and his parents were told that he wouldn't live 2 years, and here he is at 42 and an Olympian. So you can understand maybe why he was so excited. But that's kind of the other side of the Olympics. We've heard stories that make a bobsled
They're
team that's got
back.
there and needs to
They're
find,
back this
but
year.
they are back. There's lots of great stories like that. Eddie the Eagle. I don't know how many people remember him
I
back in
just saw, yeah.
Calgary, but that makes what the Olympics fun, and I think I'm glad that they continue to have that sort of stuff around. Yeah, we'll probably wrap it up there, I think, because we have a big night. We've got to grab our 2 hours sleep before 12:30 in the morning Eastern time today,
I know.
and come back at it tomorrow.
Have a great Sochi and see you tomorrow.